the U.S. In 1950, the U.S. Navy conducted Operation Sea Spray in San Francisco, releasing the bacteria Serratia marcescens to study dispersion of biological agents. The experiment aimed to understand how biological agents might spread in a coastal urban environment, but led to residents developing urinary tract infections and one death, sparking ethical concerns.
If you don't trust the government but still want the truth, then you gotta hear this. In the 1950s, the U.S. military launched a secret operation right here in San Francisco, Operation Sea Spray. Never heard of it? That's the point. Picture this, a ship off the coast, releasing a cloud of bacteria into the foggy San Francisco air. No warnings, no consent. Thousands of unsuspecting citizens exposed to Serratia marcescens, a bacteria used to simulate a biological attack. The result? Mysterious illnesses, unexplained hospitalizations, yet the truth stayed under wraps for decades. Why did they do it? To test the city's vulnerability to bioterrorism. But at what cost? Public trust shattered. Secret experiments on American soil. Operation Sea Spray wasn't just a one-time deal. It was part of a series of covert tests across the country. Ever heard of the St. Louis aerosol tests? Yeah, it's all connected. So next time you hear about government transparency, remember Operation Sea Spray. Because sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and always look beneath the surface.
Hell, that was World War I's chemical weapon attacks. The US government felt a dire need to catch up to the rest of the world in developing chemical and biological weapons for the next great conflict. With the signing of the Geneva Protocol in 1925 and its prohibition in the use of biological and chemical weapons in warfare, though, the US quickly lost interest. It wouldn't be until the infamous Japanese sneak attack on Pearl Harbor that the government would change course, suddenly seeing a need to understand how vulnerable America was to a germ or chemical sneak attack. The sneak attack on Pearl Harbor caught the US government completely unawares, and immediately after the attack, fears grew. If the US was vulnerable to a sneak conventional military attack of such a scale, then just how vulnerable was it to a chemical or biological weapon attack? Despite the signing of the Geneva Protocol banning chemical or biological weapons, rumors of Japanese chemical and biological tests on prisoners of war reached America's intelligence agencies, and it was feared that a Japanese or probably German ship disguised as a simple freighter could park outside a major city and spray chemicals or germs into the air, infecting hundreds of thousands of Americans. In 1942, President Roosevelt signed into action the first biological warfare program, which would be overseen by the National Academy of Sciences. Its primary aims were to develop biological weapons for military use, should an enemy break international law. Then it was thought that the US needed to be ready to retaliate in kind. The second aim, however, was to explore just how vulnerable the US population and its infrastructure were to a chemical biological attack. The War Research Service was thus created, with George W. Merck of the Merck Pharmaceutical Company leading it. Work on developing new bio and chemical weapons immediately began, though thankfully they were never used. At the end of the war, Merck warned that work on discovering America's vulnerabilities and developing new capabilities to act as a deterrent couldn't be ignored during a time of peace. Merck went on to say it must be continued on a sufficient scale to provide an adequate defense. In 1948, a committee on biological warfare was established and overseen by bacteriologist Ira Baldwin, with one of the first reports determining that the United States was extremely vulnerable to a sneak attack of chemical or biological weapons. This report alarmed the president, who immediately wanted to know just how vulnerable America was. Yet this was something that could only be discovered in one way: a series of open-air tests with real live germs. In order to best simulate a hostile attack with deadly bacteria, the committee decided on the use of Bacillus golbezii and Serratia marcescens, two strains of bacteria believed to be non-pathogenic and relatively harmless to humans. Serratia marcescens had one other major benefit going for it: it would turn food and surfaces it colonized a bright red, making it easier to identify and track its dispersion across a major city. With assurances that the bacteria involved were harmless to humans, the green light was given for the first biological attack on U.S. soil, carried out by the U.S. government itself. On September 20th, 1950, a U.S. Navy vessel steamed across the mouth of the San Francisco Bay. In her hold were millions of gallons of water infested with two strains of bacteria, which was pumped out and vaporized through special nozzles. San Francisco was chosen because of its favorable wind conditions and geography. Wind coming in from the ocean would carry the bacteria across the entire city, exactly the type of thing an enemy would seek to do in a real attack. For 30 minutes, the Navy ship sprayed thousands of gallons of infected water into the morning fog, creating 2-mile-long clouds. Carefully monitoring the time of release, temperature, wind speed, and humidity, U.S. agents then collected samples all across the city just to see how far the bacteria were spread by the wind itself. For one whole week, September 20th through September 27th, the U.S. government sprayed bacteria into San Francisco, monitoring how widely they were dispersed. Not only were the bacteria used believed to be harmless to humans, but another benefit of both strains of bacteria was their extreme rarity in San Francisco, or even California for that matter. That would make any reports of infections easy to track. With 7 days of spraying, nearly the entire city received 500 particle minutes per liter of air breathed, meaning that almost all of the 800,000 people in San Francisco at the time inhaled 5,000 or more particles per minute during the several hours that the germs remained airborne. The government concluded that a sneak attack using chemical or biological weapons was entirely feasible against an American city, and that such an attack could result in the infection of the majority of the city. The entire exercise had gone off without a hitch. It was a great success in revealing America's vulnerability. Yet, just days after the end of the spraying, trouble began to pop up. A few days after the end of the test, a 75-year-old man named Edward Nevin contracted a urinary tract infection and fell extremely ill. Just a month earlier, he had undergone a successful prostate gland surgery and was well on his way to recovery until the mysterious illness. Running several labs on Nevin, the hospital was shocked to discover Serratia marcescens, an extremely rare bacteria that had never once been recorded in the hospital before. By mid-October, the bacteria had spread to Nevin's heart and he died. Over the next 6 months, 10 more patients were admitted to the hospital with infections caused by Serratia marcescens, though all 10 would recover. A panic ensued as doctors and researchers tried to discover the cause of this sudden outbreak, fearful of a larger event on the horizon. Yet no source could be identified, and thankfully for the people of San Francisco, the small outbreak seemed to disappear just as mysteriously as it had started. The U.S. government, though, took note of the outbreak, conducting its own 4-man investigation into the matter. Their tests were supposed to help discover the best way to protect people from an attack, not to actually make them sick. General William CRISY spearheaded an effort to reassess the pathogenic nature of Serratia marcescens, and in a 2-page report, the investigators explained that the bacteria was not an ideal simulant after the San Francisco illness. A bacteria that had previously been thought to be completely harmless had instead been found to be potentially fatal. Yet other government scientists concluded that the bacteria was only fatal in extremely rare circumstances, and only for those with severely weakened immune systems, such as Edward Nevin's. They went on to justify its use and continue testing by saying, "On the basis of our study, we conclude that Serratia marcescens is so rarely a cause of illness, and the illness resulting is predominantly so trivial, that its use as a simulant should be continued, even over populated areas." Thus, government testing of biological agents would continue for 25 years, all conducted in the dark. It wouldn't be until 1969, when Richard Nixon signed a law banning the testing of biological weapons, that the experiments would stop. Yet the public wouldn't even find out about the testing until the mid-70s. Edward Nevin's grandson would go on to sue the U.S. government over his grandfather's death, though he would lose that lawsuit. A casualty in the U.S.'s eagerness to prepare for the worst-case scenario, the death of Nevin was ultimately the only verified link between severe illness or death and the U.S. government's biological testing on its own cities. And in the eyes of a wary military on guard against an attack on its people by an actual deadly microbe, a price worth paying. Do you think the US and other governments still test weapons on their own populations? Oh, and if you found this video interesting, make sure you watch our other video.
You've provided us with a material that we can ship internationally. You provide us with a material that seems to grow against all odds. We stressed your seed, we did everything incorrectly that we possibly could be allowed to do, and it still survived. There's no doubt that sea spray has advanced us in the environmental issues 100% forward. I promise you, you have leaped forward a huge step in turf in our industry.
Operation Sea Spray was a 1950 U.S. Navy secret experiment in which Serratia marcescens and Bacillus glabigii bacteria were sprayed over the San Francisco Bay Area in California. From September 20 to 27, 1950, the U.S. Navy released the pathogens off the shore of San Francisco. Based on results from monitoring equipment at 43 locations around the city, the Army determined that San Francisco had received enough of a dose for nearly all of the city's 800,000 residents to inhale at least 5,000 of the particles. On October 11, 1950, 11 residents checked into Stanford Hospital for very rare, serious urinary tract infections. Although 10 residents recovered, one patient, Edward J. Nevin, died 3 weeks later. None of the other hospitals in the city reported similar spikes in cases, and all 11 victims had urinary tract infections following medical procedures, suggesting that the source of their infections lay inside the hospital. Cases of pneumonia in San Francisco also increased after Serratia marcescens was released, though a causal relation has not been conclusively established. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you would like to view more of our videos. Have a nice day.
Alright, so it's crazy foggy right now. But that's not the weird part, okay? Like, number one, it's weird because as it gets later in the day, fog should lighten, dissipate, and it's really not. But the weirdest part is the taste and smell. It smells like after you set off a bunch of fireworks. And like the taste of the air is, I mean, the only word I can think of is toxic. It's super weird. And so I'm going for my walk and it's kind of worrying me a little bit. Let me know if you guys are experiencing something like that. That's weird. Yeah, I mean, it smells not right. And I'm 41. I've been through fog. This is something different. Let me know if you guys are experiencing something like that.
Did you know that in the 1950s, there was a covert project conducted by the US government known as Operation Sea Spray? This project involved releasing clouds of bacteria over the city of San Francisco, without the knowledge or consent of its residents. In September 1950, the US Navy released the bacterium Serratia marcescens from balloons over the city. The purpose of this covert experiment was to assess the vulnerability of American cities to biological warfare attacks. The military believed that by using this bacteria, they could simulate the spread of harmful agents in a real-world scenario. But the problem was Serratia marcescens can cause severe infections in individuals with weak immune systems. As a result of the experiment, 11 people got seriously ill, and one person died. Operation Sea Spray remains a dark chapter in the history of unethical human experimentation and serves as a reminder of the potential risks and consequences of clandestine government actions.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KAB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years old today, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Oh, Jesus.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Who's there?
The fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed. There's no water getting here, but something awful cold, Pin.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
Well, it should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door! Someone listen to me!
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
Something on my radar. Looks like a fog bank, and it's moving straight toward us.
What kind of fog moves against the wind?
Elizabeth? What's wrong?
I keep seeing horrible things happening. Come on, please. What's going on? What's happening?
It killed him. The fog killed him.
Get off the island.
Why?
Just go.
Somebody out here?
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years old today, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Oh, Jesus.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Who's there?
The Fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed. There's no water getting here, but something awful cold, Dana.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
It should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door! Someone listen to me!
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. From the creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrian Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
Spoken, the doomsayer departs.
Why don't you get Billy dressed? I'll take him into town with him. Hit the store before it gets all bought out.
How'd you folks hold up in the storm?
Big insurance day.
Sorry to hear that.
What's going on?
It's death.
Something in the mist! Shut the doors! Shut the doors!
The only way we're going to help ourselves is to seek rescue.
Tie this around your waist.
Or 4.
Well, let us know you got at least 300 feet.
There's nothing out there. Nothing in the mist.
What if you're wrong?
Then I guess that joke would be on me.
It is time to take sides. Read the good book. It calls for blood.
Guys, I hear something.
Are those bugs? Not like any I've ever seen. The entire front of this store is plate glass.
What are you guys messing with up there?
I thought there were other dimensions. They wanted to try and make a window.
Well, maybe your window turned out to be a door.
Who she's gonna sacrifice to make it all better?
We want the boy.
You try it.
Kill him!
Delays and cancellations continue across the country this morning amid the busy holiday travel crunch. You're looking live at LAX this morning, which is being impacted not only by the fog that still seems to be fairly dense at this hour, but also delays in other parts of the country caused by severe weather. Thousands of flights have been delayed in the past 3 days. At LAX, flight delays have jumped this morning from 60 to 126. And we have 2 more cancellations to report, raising the total to 8 canceled flights.
11:55. Almost midnight. Enough time for one more story. 5 minutes. It'll be the 21st of April. It is told by the fishermen and their fathers and grandfathers that when the fog returns to Antonio Bay, the men at the bottom of the sea will rise up.
You love it here.
It is pretty.
Not if you look closely.
Calm down, soldier.
Don't tell me to calm down. Do you not understand that there was something in the mist? We gotta get guns. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming!
6 people were found dead, presumably killed by a bear. The legend of nature turning sour. Some locals fear it's a black spring.
We're at the mall. Dad, please.
Judgment Day has come.
If there's something out there, how are you gonna survive?
Do you even know where to point that thing?
Lock the doors!
I think we need to establish a set of rules.
Let's get out of this town. It can't be all over.
The Lord will save us.
That's very sweet, Father, but there's really no need. Everything in nature has a purpose, even violence.
But I'll do whatever it takes to get to my family. Do you understand?
If this is Judgment Day, she will be judged for it.
Everyone who's gone into the mist has died. Except her. Except Alex.
We have the right to defend ourselves! What did you do?
Mom!
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today I want to talk about something that I've been seeing the last few days roll all throughout social media. Now you probably have noticed that there have been wild posts on the internet, massive discussions about this mystery fog that have been showing up all over the world, ladies and gentlemen. Now of course you've got situations where places in India, for instance, Delhi, actually have so much fog that it's caused visibility to effectively drop to something less than Silent Hill 1 on the PlayStation, okay? So you literally can't even see an inch in front of you, apparently. That's how bad things have gotten. In fact, fog has been showing up in numerous parts of the world. For instance, even near London, where apparently it's been disrupting airports as of the 1st of January. And of course, if you go to like plenty of these sites, it'll say it's a DARPA conspiracy theory surrounding this abnormal fog enveloping the globe intensifying. So wild headlines indeed. Now, when it comes to fog, I'm actually quite an expert on it. I actually live on top of a mountain, and in my mountain town, ladies and gentlemen, when you have 3 days out of the week at least, there's gonna be some fog. And fog is when, of course, if you ever experienced it, it's a beautiful time where visibility is low, especially in the late at night. It's almost calming to an effect. You know, if you played a game like Silent Hill, you probably have seen fog. If you played Persona 4, you probably know that fog is really scary. And usually somebody could die that comes out of it. Now, not in this case, that's a video game, all right, with a serial killer in it. But in reality land, fog is just a natural weather phenomenon. So if you're wondering how scary can the fog be, no, there's nobody that's gonna jump out of it. Siren Head isn't gonna show up and like chase you through the fog, okay? It's just a part of the weather that affects you. But of course, the more and more people have been kind of having this happen to them, the more and more there have been actual posts about this. For instance, one of them on r/high strangeness, as of 3 days ago, the fog has been persistent for 4 days and nights. Many people I know have gotten a strange sickness they can't really describe in the last few days. Wear a mask if you encounter it. Now, this is that part of the year where I'm actually extra careful because I am pretty susceptible to things like the flu. Like if I get the flu, I am actually in bed for a couple days. It affects me pretty terribly. And even though I get flu shots, sometimes you still end up getting the flu, which sucks no matter what. But of course, this was a pretty serious thing. It started to be shared around here. And of course, even beyond all of it, there were people sharing on Facebook science groups, which again, this was a whole bunch of wild nonsense. I'm sick from the fog. It started yesterday. Asthma, migraine, sore throat, burning eyes. People are reporting this all over America. Now, aside from fringe Facebook groups, I haven't seen any medical reports of any of this. But they mentioned a location, Southeast Florida. Right now, I was running out errands yesterday and had to come home. I have a really serious headache, asthma, burning eyes, and terrible fatigue. I noticed when I got home yesterday, our house had a slight burning smell. So people have been reporting like apparently burning chemical smells out of all of this. Now, of course, I live in Canada. I don't live in Southeast Florida, so I wouldn't know the same smell. But yeah, this is before I even knew about the fog. So unfortunately, I opened the door to let the air in. It seems to be worse at night, and I can attest to that here. Thousands of social media users this week have taken to clips, posting clips of this bizarre, unprecedented fog. It's being called FogVid24. No one is calling it FogVid24. Outside of like 3 places, I have not, the people are trying to make this thing an actual reality, when in reality, it is not, okay? Nobody is calling that, okay? Aside from like 3 or 4 viral posts, it is not called FogVid24. No one has acknowledged it as that, so I just want to stamp this out right here. Some people are getting really sick from it, myself included. I think people with lung issues are especially vulnerable. People are speculating that it's some kind of chloride. Update: nearly a third of the US population, spanning 27 states, is experiencing an unprecedented wave of dense fog. The thickest in nearly 2 decades. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's gotten apparently so bad that people are talking about this, even of course, as of yesterday, in San Diego, all the way in California. So from coast to coast, it is apparently causing a serious fog advisory. So in California, apparently images like this have rolled into San Diego. It almost looks like, again, Silent fucking Hill. And when it comes to the National Weather Service, even they've pretty much said dense fog advisory in effect until 10 a.m. Friday, Pacific Standard Time. And the visibility is 1/4 mile or less in dense fog. And of course, where is it? Orange County coastal areas and San Diego County coastal areas. So yeah, it is genuinely a little bit wild that it's happening all over the world. In fact, even in Canada, as of the last couple days where I live in the mountains, it's also been a similar situation. We've had days where fog has basically taken over. But as somebody that has kind of lived in fog for a while now, it's not something that is super duper shocking to me. But even on places like Paranormal, am I the only one who notices that it's getting weirdly foggy? Now, there have been people who respond to these posts, and thankfully, you've got individuals having healthy discussion. One user says, it's winter in the northern hemisphere and fog happens. It's not paranormal. In the next few years, decades, you're gonna see a lot of weather changes. So just because you haven't had fog in a couple of years doesn't mean it's paranormal that you're getting it now. But if people go out in it and don't come back, don't go out in it. I agree. If you start to get missing and you start to hear Siren Head, you start to see shit in the fog, your radios are going off, yeah, maybe there's something deeper to it. But for now, that hasn't been confirmed. Why is the whole world foggy all at once? Okay, maybe not the whole world, but a quick search of the word fog filter today shows people from SoCal to New England, Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, UK, and other parts of Europe all talking about dense fog. So again, one individual comes by over here and says, you just listed a lot of places that are regularly foggy. Not crazy, it overlaps. But one guy's like, it's kind of irregularly foggy. I think there's a warm front all over a lot of North America causing this weather. We've had dense fog, thunderstorms, and some tornadoes near me in the southeast and my family back up in the northeast. Also had an unseasonably warm 60-degree day with fogs and thunderstorms at the same time. That's a bit unusual on both accounts, not so much the temp here, but we've had a pretty dry couple of years, so to get heavy rain all at once was a bit out of the ordinary. This guy provided a pretty meteorological answer, but of course, the further you go down into it, ladies and gentlemen, the more and more you find actual videos turning this into a conspiracy. So a few people on 4chan over here said, "Black pill me on the fog. The fog is said to be a manifestation of primordial chaos, a ghostly shroud born from the dreams of an eldritch entity slumbering in dimensions beyond comprehension." I too love 4chan sometimes, man. It's probably one of the best places to go to when you just want to have a goddamn laugh or doom pill yourself. So here's one guy, "The fog is coming, the fog is near." Is it just a coincidence that this dense fog was predicted to roll right after a mysterious sighting of drones and orbs? Certainly seems more than chance with everything that's been happening. I love this. "The fog is coming. The fog is near." It's gonna fuck with my head later when I sleep. God damn. Expect massive deaths. Stock up on toilet paper. The big one is coming. Oh, this seems the more likely answer. A fucking Reddit mod is vaping us. It is Silent Hill, dude. It is Silent Hill. In my restless dreams, I see that vapor. Now, in amongst all of it, I think where this really started to get popularized and where I actually initially saw it was actually all over TikTok, for crying out loud. So for instance, right over here, this is just one of many videos.
Well, I don't want to get all conspiracy minded, but people have been talking about weird fog coming in, and it is 4:35 a.m. Central Time here in New Orleans. And I saw this out the window and I thought something was on fire. And I've seen a lot of, believe me, if someone can correct me, it's fine. I've seen a lot of fog in my days, but nothing that really moves that fast before. So I don't know, everybody's been so sick.
Now, it's interesting when people are mentioning things like people are getting sick. Now, like I said, it kind of feels like maybe this is flu season correlating with this phenomenon that's occurring. And like I said, when it came to the drone story and it came to a lot of these things, I do feel like there is obviously a level of mass hysteria. And it's one of these situations where, again, we live in an era where things can be tested in real time. With so much social media and so many people that have access to actual laboratories and actual, professionals out in the world, what I am wondering is why isn't anybody collecting this fog and actually, analyzing it right now in a laboratory through actual methodologies that we have right now? If there's seriously something scary in this fog, then it should be absolutely, isolated and figured out. I feel like it's fun to kind of engage with this because, like I said, I'm not here to make fun of the people who are actually, talking about this. While I don't agree with this theory whatsoever, I do think that there is a lot of government distrust that has caused people to actually go down this rabbit hole. And it's something I'll be discussing just later towards the tail end of this video. For a lot of these individuals out there, they've come across something that they genuinely feel is real. But for me, I haven't seen any evidence of this being sinister. And it really just seems like it's actual weather. Because again, if you're really going down the idea of the government controlling the weather, remember, the weather is a very, very, very complex phenomenon. And again, when you want to create things like tornadoes or massive, fog clouds like this, it requires some pretty large apparatus, things that can't easily be hidden.
Like, number one, it's weird because as it gets later in the day, fog should lighten, dissipate, and it's really not. But the weirdest part is the taste and smell. It smells like after you set off a bunch of fireworks, and like the taste of the air is, the only word I can think of is toxic.
It almost feels like he's smelling some gunpowder or something, like firework residue going off. Now, if you've been in foggy areas, I kind of disagree. Sometimes it can get real foggy until way later in the day, okay? Shit is different, okay? Weather is a wild phenomenon. Now, at some point, I started to see a clip that didn't really make a lot of sense. So for instance, this one clip from Florida was genuinely something that I had to really research and look into. So this is Florida, and from what I understand, Florida is a genuinely warm part of the country, obviously being so close to the equator, the southern US. This is like Last of Us level spores flying around. And I really had to wonder what this actually could have been. And it wasn't just this one clip, there were other people sharing like ring footage where like they actually had the date in the corner as of the 29th of 2024, like the last few days. And you saw a whole bunch of particles floating around in the air. And these people claimed that the weather was in the 40s Fahrenheit, and of course it wasn't snowing or raining, or at least not really snowing or raining. And again, when it came to this mist itself, people asked the same questions I'm asking. Why doesn't a biologist or scientist just grab and examine that fog under a microscope? Yeah, actually that's a pretty good question. Why doesn't somebody grab this and examine this under a microscope or a spectrograph or anything? And of course, classic internet, they tried but missed. Credit where credit due. It's a mystery. Oh man, dude, the internet's goofy with this shit, bro. Even 2 days ago, with one person asking in Florida, what's with all the mist? And one person says, it's the one guy girl's humidifier. Yeah, Florida man's girlfriend's humidifier is going off. One person says it's advection fog, which is when warm, moist sea air blows over cool land. The land cools the air, the colder air can no longer hold the moisture. It becomes foggy. Literally a ground cloud. To which when I looked up the advection fog, this is actually a pretty real thing, and this is apparently an image of it, which makes sense if that's what we're looking at. You know, just these particles floating around in the air. And again, the actual temperature does make a lot of sense, because even when it was unseasonably foggy a few days ago, one thing that obviously I did was look up the actual weather a couple days ago, and to show you the evidence of it, literally as of like the 26th, it was like 0 degrees Celsius, which is freezing, right? Now, it was actually weird because on the Saturday and Sunday, like this weekend, it was actually warm. Like it got up to 13 degrees, sunny of all things. And then it was rainy and foggy for an entire day after. So you can see that this is historical data for where I live. And the thing about it is, it was genuinely weird. Like literally on the beginning of the, like the last week, I would sit in my car and it would just say 0 degrees Celsius, right? Because it's winter. But yeah, this weekend we actually had, 11 degrees. And I actually had this not as anecdotal evidence, but stuff I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen this fog and I've seen this thing happen. It's literally just the weather being the fucking weather. So again, when it came to all of this, the conspiracy started ramping up. So for instance, right over here, one person says, you guys heard about the fog hitting many states and countries in the West? There's a patent for that too. And so they got this patent from fucking Google Gemini AI, US 1338343A. So like somebody that does my own research, I decided to look at this patent right here. And this is the process and apparatus for the production of intense artificial clouds, fogs, or mist. This is what apparently this apparatus looks like, these two tanks on top of this like one basin, if you will. And this was made by Paul Weiss and Jules Verdier. And this was founded in 1916, okay? So a over 100-year-old patent was brought up in this situation. So the present invention renders it possible to produce very opaque artificial mists by affecting the atomization of anhydrous chlorides, such as titanium chloride or stannic chloride or analogous bodies in a moist ammoniacal atmosphere. Again, I can't begin to explain this, but this is a pretty old patent that's actually had a lot of similar patents associated to it. Now, if I look closer into this, it almost seems like it's kind of the first patent in a line of patents that would eventually lead people into something known as the fog machine. There's actually other patents like apparatus for producing fog. So you look very carefully at it, it's an actual, figure for showing you how to produce. The same Bach group right over here where it was referenced to. Now, this is also another patent that was applied in 1925. And if you look very carefully at this, if you've ever been to a metal show, a metal concert, you've probably seen this machine very clearly. It's a fucking fog machine, ladies and gentlemen. And you can pick up a fog machine for like, I don't know, 50, 100 bucks at times, depending on where you go. Yeah, it's a fog machine, all right? Simple as that. So yes, you can in fact create mist and fog. We have machines for this situation right here. Now, people who dig up patents that genuinely come out like this and, dig them up from like 100 years ago as some sort of like gotcha or maybe like a government conspiracy, failed to realize that you can actually find a patent for pretty much anything. For instance, here's a patent for perfusing an animal's head. So I'm not joking with you, this is actually a real thing. That is a human head connected to an apparatus that is supposedly keeping it alive. The invention involves a device referred to herein as a cabinet, which provides physical and biochemical support for an animal's head, which has been discorporated, i.e. severed from its body. The device can be used to supply a discorped head with oxygenated blood and nutrients by means of tubes connected to arteries which pass through the neck. After circulating through the head, the deoxygenated blood returns to the cabinets by means of cannula. So why am I bringing this up? Well, it's because this patent was filed back in 1985. Now, why would Chet Fleming, a lawyer at the time, file this? Well, because he wanted to make sure that nobody was going to do this, so he filed a prophetic patent. So no other sick individual in the United States could even attempt to do this for the lifetime of the patent. Now, from what I've heard, even though this patent has effectively been expired, it is not being performed, at least from my knowledge. I don't think anybody's doing the Futurama head in a jar thing. But again, there are patents for nearly everything. So just because you see a patent that seems like it could be used to control the weather, remember the patent being shown in this situation wouldn't even cover just a small area. Again, you could even look at a patent for a smoke grenade and probably realize, oh shit, the government might be using this to control the weather. But again, the rash of conspiracies don't stop. People who look at videos like the one I showed you just a while back in Florida with the crazy spores, some people even say these could possibly be alien spores out there. Again, no actual proof whatsoever provided. So basically this whole situation, this weather phenomenon that has happened at the end of last year has effectively taken a life of its own. And there's a reason for that. Like I said earlier into this, there is a serious distrust of the government. But one actual thing that people did bring up, which was absolutely wild, that I didn't know about until I was researching this video or looking into this even deeper, was something known as Operation Sea Spray. Now, Operation Sea Spray is, according to this Wikipedia article right here, was a 1950 US Navy secret biological warfare experiment. So biological warfare, as far as my understanding, is warfare that is never supposed to be allowed, even between countries at war. Like it's one of the rules of war, right? Like one of the Geneva Conventions. But basically what they said was Serratia marcescens and Bacillus globigii bacteria was sprayed over the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And they were doing this to determine how vulnerable a city like San Francisco, which is a pretty big city in the United States, a pretty big hub, very serious stuff happens over there, obviously, huge point, may be susceptible to a bioweapon attack. So in this situation, apparently it killed at least one American and sickened at least 10 more. And the thing is, this actually isn't even a conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is something the United States actually did to its own people. And there isn't a joke about it. This is from the Smithsonian Magazine, where they talked about the US releasing a bioweapon in San Francisco. So when the government does shit like this, it sparks a lot of people to genuinely be distrustful of the government. Like even somebody like me that is looking at this is like clearly the weather being the weather. When I read stuff like this and I correlate this to the individuals who around the country, sometimes even the world, have said they feel sick. They smell something burning. Maybe it is just mass hysteria, but when you read stuff like this and you read the history of at least the United States operating on its own soil, this is where government distrust basically correlates with wild conspiratorial thinking like this. Now, at the time, even the US military believed that what they were releasing was supposed to be harmless to human beings, and basically based on the monitoring equipment at 43 locations, they actually had confirmed that San Francisco received enough of a dose for nearly all the city's 800,000 residents at the time to inhale 5,000 of the particles. Now, in the illnesses section for this, and when people looked into it, right, 11 residents checked in to Stanford Hospital near SF with very rare, serious urinary tract infections. And while 10 recovered, one individual, Edward Nevin, who had actually received a prostate surgery, died 3 weeks later from a heart valve infection. So incredibly tragic. And when you look further into this too, right, cases of pneumonia in San Francisco increased after Serratia marcescens was released. Though a causal relation has not been conclusively established, the bacterium was also combined with fennel and an anthrax simulant and sprayed across South Dorset by US and UK military scientists as part of the DICE trials that ran from 71 to 75. However, there was no evidence that the army had alerted health authorities before it blanketed the region with bacteria. Doctors later wondered whether the experiment might be responsible for heart valve infections around the same time, as well as serious infections seen amongst intravenous drug users in the 60s and the 70s. So there was some serious concerns, obviously, and when the US military has done stuff like this without properly relaying it, it obviously breeds distrust into people. And that distrust is what caused people to look at things like this massive international fog case as something even deeper than what it actually could be. And the thing about these conspiracies is usually when they get, brought up as conspiracies back in the 50s in this case, people tend to laugh it off and say you're a psychopath. Until, of course, down the road, it ends up coming out in a U.S. Senate subcommittee, with actual hearings where they disclose the existence of these tests. And again, it breeds some validity into the conspiracy theorists at that time. But again, this is more about a story of government distrust breeding the actual conspiracies we're seeing now. Do I genuinely believe that this foggy front that has been occurring for the last couple days is responsible by the US military? In my opinion, I don't think so. But reading stuff like this, I genuinely can see why conspiracy theorists fall into the camp that they do. And it's why I don't necessarily go out of my way to make fun of people, especially with things like this. I'll make fun of somebody with flat earth stuff, and even this to a reasonable extent. But when it comes to people genuinely feeling sick and correlating it to stuff like this, obviously it's the unethical nature of US non-consensual tests, by the way, that cause this level of belief. Now, obviously, there's people who are absolutely trying to be the scientists in this situation and to get some answers. So this one doctor, I don't know if they are a doctor, but they said they're a doctor, they're verified. I'm calling on my scientist colleagues for help. This was taken just now in Southwest Florida. This is not fog. There isn't moisture. Again, I have no way to confirm this, I'm not there. Collections are needed. Lab personnel, we need you. From GC, mass spec to sequencing labs. And hopefully maybe something comes out of it. I have no issue with people who do their own research and people who use the scientific method to actually confirm if things are good or bad. But yeah, the fog conspiracy is wild to witness, okay? Do I think that there is a crazy conspiracy and the government is trying to poison people? I don't really think it is that way. From everyone that I've talked to and all the research I've done, it really is just the weather, okay? So don't be too freaked out by the fog, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fall for the conspiracies. Just relax, okay? The government is scary, but the weather is also a little unpredictable. And it's still such a... Mother Nature is still such a strong beast that there is really no government out there that has the technology to bend it to its beck and call. So for now, I really do think that you are pretty safe. But generally speaking, if you are somebody that does feel that this weather is affecting you, then maybe it is time that you should probably wear a mask or maybe stay inside for a couple days if you can, and try avoiding it for now. But ladies and gentlemen, that was the story of the weird fog going on. So yeah, it's a topic that really interested me. I wanted to really share it with you. I know that some of you have probably seen this floating around. I've definitely seen a lot of talks about political shit going. People are talking about crazy stuff nowadays. There's fucking Cybertrucks blowing up in front of Las Vegas, Trump, the Trump Tower in Vegas. Wild shit, okay? There's crazy stuff happening all over. But yeah, I wanted to bring this up because, goddamn, the fog conspiracy was weird. But I really do think it is just that. It is just the weather. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am. I don't know. But I do like to have a discussion about this topic. But I also like to be rational and scientific about this as well, too. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.
Right before... New tonight, the final transmission from the pilot of Kobe Bryant's helicopter said he was climbing to avoid cloud layer. Preliminary flight data shows the helicopter climbed at 2,300 feet while making a left turn right before it crashed down. The pilot told air traffic control that he started to climb in an effort to get above the cloud layer. The pilot was also an instrument-rated pilot and qualified to fly in fog. But on Sunday, the fog in the area was so thick and widespread that the LAPD grounded its own helicopters because of the weather.
The charter company whose helicopter crashed and killed basketball star Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and 7 others did not have the proper certification to allow the pilot to fly on instruments. Flight instruments are cockpit tools that let a pilot measure such things as altitude and speed when visibility is low, as was the case on Sunday, when Bryant's helicopter crashed amid heavy clouds and fog. Island Express Helicopters, which owned the Sikorsky S-76B, was only certified to operate under what's called visual flight rules, which mean pilots must be able to clearly see outside the aircraft in daylight. The helicopter was equipped for instrument flying and the pilot was licensed to use them, but due to the lack of company certification, he was required to fly only when he could navigate visually. The twin-engine helicopter slammed into a hillside in Calabasas, California on Sunday. Air traffic controllers had given the pilot special visual flight rules, or clearance to fly in less than optimal weather around the Burbank airport. Fog was so thick at the time of the crash that police grounded their own helicopters. In a statement, Island Express Helicopters said it was suspending all services, adding, quote, "The shock of the accident affected all staff." Bryant's former team, the Los Angeles Lakers, will return to the court Friday night for the first time since his death, with a tribute plan to honor one of their greatest ever players.